Hey guys, and welcome back. I hope everyone's had an amazing and blessed week. It's springtime, in case you haven't noticed. Hopefully you have, and you've gotten out and seen some of the amazing dogwoods blooming and red buds if you live in the part of the country where these are in your neck of the woods. Hopefully so. It's beautiful. This past week, I thought it would be a really great opportunity to go to Broken Bow and see what was blooming and what was emerging and bringing some color to these barren hills. And I'm trying something a little bit different today, and I'll get into that in just a second. But ultimately, what I want to share is a shot from Thunderbird Falls. I got to visit one of my favorite locations in Broken Bow and revisit Thunderbird Falls. And ultimately, that led me to a shot that I want to go through and help you understand how I kind of edited this. And it led me to do a focus stack. The composition that I came up with ended up causing me to have to do a focus stack. But let's get going, because this week is going to be pretty cool as we go behind the scenes in shooting and editing a shot from Thunderbird Falls. Welcome to my new mobile studio. I'm trying something new this morning. I'm going to try to take you behind the scenes on the whole photography outing with me this morning as I go out to Broken Bow. I'm shooting on the new DJI Pocket 2, which is a little camera mounted on my dashboard, and I've got a little wireless microphone that's supposed to be connected to it now. Hopefully that's coming through okay, and it's actually supposed to track my face if I move around. That's kind of weird, right? Yeah, it's tracking with me. That's kind of interesting to see. But it's been an awesome morning. I dropped off my oldest son this morning to go compete in the state academic meet, which I'm really proud of him. It's awesome. And so I had to get up really early anyway to take him to meet the team and get on the bus. So I'm going early out to Broken Bow. It's a little too late to try to get a sunrise picture, but it's clouding up on the horizon. I've sort of watched blue hour play out. There's some low clouds building on the horizon and moving from east to west. Actually, I'm driving east right now, but I wanted to start something new with my channel and do a little more behind the scenes of how I go out and get these shots. So taking you with me and hopefully show you more of the journey along the way and the aspects that I go through on finding the location and finding a shot and getting that shot. And so today, I think it's going to be a perfect day to visit Thunderbird Falls. It's a location I've definitely been to several times. I love it. It's beautiful. A few nights ago, we got a pretty strong rain, which should create good flow on the falls. And my good buddy Randy Sander, who's an expert on Broken Bow and Thunderbird Falls, mentioned that Thunderbird is so tall and so powerful that if it has fresh rain, the water actually is so violent at the bottom that it stirs up a bunch of silt and moves rocks and stuff around, and it can create a little bit of a muddy pool at the bottom. And it's not as pretty as once the water flow calms down a little bit, then it can make a beautiful blue-green pool at the bottom. It is a challenging falls, I will have to say, to shoot. It's super steep on both sides, like a V, and there's a weird tree that sort of comes out of the hill. I've tried to incorporate it in some shots, but I don't know if I've done that successfully. And I really want to challenge myself to find a new composition of Thunderbird Falls. And I want to kind of lock myself into one focal length, one composition, and resist shooting it as either a horizontal or vertical pano. You know, I'm crazy about panos. I have a hard time not shooting panos. So I want to challenge myself to lock off and just get one single frame, whether it's vertical or horizontal, and maybe even do some focus stacking. But I know the area to be beautiful for other reasons. There's dogwood and possibly redbud blooming this time of the year, so I'm just going to give myself the permission and the freedom to walk around and explore and find new things, spend some time with God in nature, and just see what kind of compositions I can find, and I'm going to take you along with me. So that's what landscape photography is all about. It's just getting up early, going to a new place or a familiar place, maybe drinking some coffee and just clearing your thoughts, spend some time with God. And that's exactly what we're going to do this morning. So welcome along the trip, and let's see if we can come away with some good shots.
So I have to make an admission. Full disclosure, I made a greenhorn move with my new little camera. I had it what I thought was in video mode, and I was filming myself on selfie, and somehow on the phone interface I accidentally fat fingered and scrolled down to hyperlapse. So I went through and shot all of this amazing footage of the approach to Thunderbird Falls and showed you guys how to get there, the trail markers, the beautiful scenery along the way, peeking over the falls, and I shot the entire segment in hyperlapse. So you can't hear a word that I was saying, and furthermore, you can't really appreciate anything because it's going at light speed. So I'm going to try to freeze frame a couple of these just to show you a little bit of this trail on the way down to Thunderbird Falls. There's a really cool place that I park on the way to Thunderbird Lodge. Randy Sanders showed me this, and you actually are on the Cedar Bluff Trail or Skyline, one of the two. I think it's Cedar Bluff. And you go left-handed on the trail, and you're really close to Thunderbird Falls. So that's a little bit of a secret for my viewing audience. If you want a shortcut to Thunderbird Falls, just pretend you're going to Thunderbird Lodge off of 259A in Hochatown, and it'll take you right to the trail that leads to Thunderbird Falls. And I will say that it's really sketchy if you try to go across the falls and down on that right-hand side, so be super, super careful if you go that way. The original trail takes you to the left of the falls if you're at the top, and that's a much safer way. But if you're like me and a little bit impatient, I just want to get down to the bottom. So I go around the right-hand side, which is pretty steep, it's pretty slick. So if you go that route, be sure to hang on to some roots or some branches and use good judgment. And if you're afraid of heights, just don't look to the left as you're going down. That's basically what I was saying in my hyperlapse video. But ultimately, I found my way down to the bottom, and I turned this little camera off, and when I turned it back on, I got it back on video mode. So some of this was actually salvaged.
So the first thing I'm going to do is try to find a composition. I'm going to walk around either with my phone or with my camera and try different frames before I even set up the tripod in order to find a good composition. I'm going to try to find something new. So I'm going to swap my 14 to 30 out, and I'm going to grab the 24 to 70. Because I want to use a polarizer, and I don't have my 82 millimeter polarizer in my bag for some crazy reason. So the first thing I'm going to do is just check to see where my best composition is going to be. I really like the pebbles, and I like this tree. But it's sort of a stark shape to try to incorporate that tree into a vertical pano. You see that? It's a little bit stark. So what does it look like if I'm over here? Kind of low. Do a vertical shot this way. Kind of comes in at an angle that way. I've done a composition before where I was all the way up here. I kind of balanced myself on the rocks. It's hard to get good footing here. And I got this shot up over top of this tree. That composition was somewhere right in here. And that's pretty interesting. But I've already got that composition. I might want to try something new. So, what about down here? No, that's just such a stark element. I may just omit it and come down lower. Just get a shot of the falls going up this way. the lower I go, the less I can see the color of that pool. So I think I found my composition right here, and it's a little bit different than what I shot before. My first shot was about in here, and it showed some water underneath this tree, but it's so stark that I think I want to move up just slightly and incorporate this root, and also do a focus stack where I have the falls and I also have this root and that really cool moss. It looks like it's going to make for a really nice focus stack. So I'm probably going to lock the camera somewhere right in here. I think that's going to be my composition. And now it's time to set up the beast. One thing about this tripod, I've never had to worry about it not being tall enough. I'm changing the circular polarizer to give me some color in the water. You can watch it change. Get kind of the peak of color. I can see it, really the light on those rocks in the back is really what I'm noticing, more than even just the color in the water. I'm noticing a lot more glare on those rocks. That's what I'm really cutting. So I may split the difference and use a little bit of that to kind of give definition to the waterfall. And I am going to do a multi-shot pano. But fortunately, I don't think I'm going to have to do any kind of HDR. I've got plenty of dynamic range here. So that's the shot I'm going to set up for. I'm going to set my ISO down all the way to low 1. I know that a lot of people say don't go below ISO 64, whatever the native ISO is for your camera, but I found some arguments on the contrary, to use those Nikon low 1, low 0.7 settings, and I'm going to just see if it gives me a little cleaner image with less noise in the shadows. But we are going to be on, I'm going to shoot it at f8. Let me see what my might be a little bit too slow of a shutter. That's a 1 second shutter. And I'm going to first focus on this area with the root in it, up really close. I've got a 2 second delay because even though this is a really stable gimbal, this Nodal Ninja is a beast. It still is a little bit shaky if I have my hand up here and I hit the shutter, so I'm going to do a 2 second delay to make sure that I don't introduce any camera shake. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and shoot. And the first thing I'm going to do is set my focus point right on this contrasty moss. I'm going to go ahead and take my first 2 shots, and then I'm going to move to this next position, and I'm going to focus on that root again. I'm going to take 2 shots, and I'm going to move to this position right here. And the final position here, which I may not end up needing, but I'm going to go ahead and capture that anyway. I like to shoot a little more width on my pano in case I want to crop. In fact, I could have gone over here and done the same thing. I may go ahead and shoot that position as well. Okay, so that takes care of the focus on this area. And now I need to walk this frame in. But first, I want to see what is the personality of the water. If I've got good motion on that water. Let me zoom in. I'll go ahead and finish this focus stack with the water at 1 second, and then I may speed it up and see if I get a little bit better result. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to walk my focusing square up to this middle ground, and I'm going to grab focus on that. Again, I'll start my frame here. You can see that the grass below it is blurry now. That's what we want. We're walking that shot up, the focus up from the bottom. I'm going to take this position. And I'm not moving the focus because there's going to be more on this side that will be in that same focus range. Okay. And so now I'll go ahead and set my focus point on those leaves. So that really should be my shot. So I'm going to take those 2-shot brackets, I'm going to merge those together. I'm going to create each little pano. I know I said I was going to try to do it in one shot, but I didn't have my polarizer for my 14 to 30, so I had to shoot on a 24 to 70, and I needed to be a little bit wider, so I wanted to do a pano. So forgive me, I'm the pano man, what can I say? But I'm going to merge these things together, and then each one of those panos that I've got will be a different section of focus in this shot. So then I'll merge those together in Photoshop and see if I can isolate the highest point of focus in each one of those shots to give me one single shot that's perfectly focused from front to back. So let's see if it works.
And it ended up working out pretty well. So I had 4 panoramic shots that were stitched together, and then I tried to layer those on top of each other. Now the danger there is that the computer, although it's amazing, it's not perfectly consistent across the board. So there's a little bit of flex and warp in those panoramas from one to the next. And it has to do with the focus point, because when your computer's stitching together a panorama, it's looking at all the fine focus detail in order to figure out where these photos merge. And if each one of those panoramas has a different focus point, it stands to reason that there's going to be a little bit of shift in there. So it gets a little bit tricky in Photoshop, but I'm going to go through all of that with you and show you how you can do it and not be intimidated by doing focus stack no matter what. Okay, let's take a quick look at how we're going to edit a focus stack. Don't be intimidated by it. It sounds really complicated, but it really isn't. You're going to go into Lightroom and you're going to start editing your shots the same way that you normally would, with the anticipation that you're going to merge 3, 4, 5 images together and only use the area of highest focus. So let me show you how we do that. I'm going to go into Lightroom, and these are the compositions that I've worked with in my focus stack of Thunderbird Falls, which is a 4-shot pano, and I stitched each one of those together with each position, and then I put all those together. But for our purposes, we're just going to do one of those positions on that pano, which is this one here. So what I did is a basic edit. I'm not really going to spend a whole lot of time here, but the most important thing is that you apply the same develop settings to each one of the photos that you're going to use in your focus stack. So really quickly, let me zoom in on this image, and you can see this first one, the area of highest focus is the tree. I was kind of using that to sort of frame the bottom of the picture, and you can see right away that right behind the root and the tree it goes bokeh, it goes out of focus. But if we click on the very next image, we can see right away that that area is in focus. Now you might have noticed that it got brighter. I did not change the develop settings. I used the exact same develop settings, but the light was kind of going up and down on me. The clouds were thick and thin, and as I shot these, it changed. So I'm not really too worried about that. I could get into the fine details and try to match those, but I would say just it's not going to really be enough of a difference to worry about here. If I go to the next shot, now this area is more in focus, and the waterfall's getting still more in focus. And if I go to the final image, which is this one, the background is definitely much more in focus back in the very distant background. So all I did was I exported all 4 of these images and I put them in a folder. So now I'm going to switch gears. I'm just going to quit. So now let's go into Photoshop. This is where you're going to make the magic happen. We're going to go to File, go down to Scripts, and click on Load Files into Stack. You're going to browse and find the 4 images that you've exported out of Lightroom that you've already done some work on. We're going to hit OK. And what it's going to do is put those into a composition, and it's going to align those. And if you shoot on a tripod, you shouldn't lose any of your composition. You should have everything. Now, if you shoot handheld, just expect that as it tries to line those photos up a little bit, that you're going to have a little bit of loss of your composition. But let's just see how it did here. We shouldn't have lost really anything. So it's got 4 images perfectly stacked up. And if I go through them really quickly, the bottom image is the area at the top, which is in the sharpest focus. The next one is this area here and here. Still our tree is out of focus. The next one, we can see this area got a lot more focused. And then ultimately, our last image is of our tree. So now we need to know, how are we going to separate and only use the areas of highest focus? Well, Photoshop has a little trick that I want to show you now. So take these 4 layers and highlight them. Go up to Edit, Auto Blend Layers. Click on Stack Images. We're not going to merge into multi-frame pano. We're just going to stack these images, seamless tones and colors, and we're going to hit OK. And now what it's going to do is make a series of layer masks. Remember this rule: white reveals and black conceals. So it's going to make a series of layer masks on each one of these layers, and it's going to try to hide any of the areas that are not in focus. And let's see how it does. It's creating our seamless composition now. And boom, here it created 4 layer masks. So what I want to do is turn off these bottom ones and see how it did. Okay, I can look here and see that it's got the tree as we expected. Yeah, all of that's what it kept, and it kept some funky little piece of the water here, but it did keep our tree. And then the next layer, it kept much of the hillside as we expected. Yep. Then the third position got most of the waterfall around here. It left off a little bit of that water for some reason. And then the final shot that it kept was detail from those trees in the distant background. Now, I encourage you to zoom in and look around, because as good as Photoshop is, it's definitely not perfect. And that's where the labor of love comes into play with doing a focus stack, is you have to get in, manipulate those layer masks, and tweak some things. And I'm going to show you really quickly how to do that. So first off, let's go zoom in on our area of closest focus, which is our tree. And I see one little problem area here around this furthest part of the stump, or the tree root from me. And I think I made a goof up move here, and I should have taken one more position there to get focus on it, but I didn't. And so now I've got a little bit of a problem. Another issue you might run into with focus stacking is focus breathing. That's when you have something very close to your camera and you pull focus on that, and then you focus on something further away. You get a little bit of a zoom factor when those elements inside that lens move to pull focus on the distant area. It's going to give you the illusion of zooming. And that's why we pay exorbitant money in the film and video world for those cinema lenses that don't have much breathing at all. They put a lot more science and glass and a lot more effort to make those lenses that don't breathe. We're on stills glass, and I will say the Z glass for Nikon cameras is absolutely fantastic. There's very minimal breathing. My little Pocket 2 just died, so I'll go with this camera now. And let me show you how we can clean this up. So remember, white reveals and black conceals. So let's click on this layer mask and see if we can improve upon what Photoshop has done. I've got a kind of a small brush chosen, and I'm just going around the edge here to see if I can pull any more detail. And as you can see already, I'm improving on this. See, you can kind of clean up that edge where Photoshop might have goofed up a little bit. But if you have an issue like I'm having here where there's just that problem of focus breathing, I just can now come back and clean up this just a little bit more with this tool. That's looking actually pretty good. But I do want to show you a little trick. In the event that you have an area where, I'm going to have to reveal some behind that. If you get to this point where you're going around an object and all you're doing is getting the checkered boxes behind, that means that it's also hidden on the very next layer. So it's really easy. If we go down to the next layer mask, we should be able to choose a white brush and just, we don't even have to be careful now because that's behind that layer. We can just paint that in. But let me show you a little trick, and I had to do this on mine too because I goofed up and I didn't pull focus on the back of the tree. So let me play God just a little bit and show you what I did. I grabbed the lasso tool and I just kind of went around, and I didn't really try to be precise like making a perfect circle. I wanted this edge to be rough and have some texture like the original tree. But I kind of went around this where it was a little bit soft. And let me show you what we can do. So this is a little trick. If you run into issues like this where there's just a lack of information, let me show you how we can kind of make up for it. I want to go back to this layer mask. And I'm going to choose a white brush. Pretty big brush. I don't have to be too precise because all I'm doing is I'm telling it, look, I want to use all the way out to the edge of this blob right here. I'm just going to use all that area. Then I'm going to go back to the image itself, not the layer mask, but the image. And I'm going to click the rubber stamp tool or the clone tool. And the way the clone tool works, the way I always envisioned it in my mind is having this, imagine it's a wet oil painting. And we're going to take a stamp of this paint and we're going to transfer it somewhere else. We can pick up this color and copy it over here. So we're going to pick up this texture and I'm going to put it around this edge. I can borrow this texture, I can go here, I can borrow that texture and go here. I can even pick up, if I like this little green texture, I can emulate that here. And now I've got fine detail all the way out to the edge, and it's a really hard line. But if I feel like it's too hard, I can go back to the layer mask, choose a black brush. Maybe I'll grab a hard, small brush and go back in where I feel like it's too perfect and needs to be roughed up a little bit, and I can kind of jag up that line and make it look like something from nature again. And that's a way we can kind of fix a little goof up. But just remember, anywhere you want to on your layer, your focus stack, you can reveal or conceal areas pretty easily. And then you can clean up. Let's look at one more area I see here. Let's just see. Photoshop didn't do a very good job here. I think that image had more detail on that branch than that. I don't remember that being that out of focus. So let me grab a white brush on that top layer and let's just see. Oh yeah, see Photoshop? Man, you just can't trust it always. There's a lot more detail here that can be revealed all the way out to that edge. You might just have to play around with it and see. See, that's getting even better up in here. Yeah. So it's not an exact science. You might have to go a little bit past it and then come back with a black brush and then hide it back again. And just keep tweaking this until you get it in a place where you really, really like it. But you spend some time in your composition, looking around, and just keep zooming in, keep going in, coming back out, zooming back in, moving around, and seeing if there's any little areas that are errors. Because the last thing you want to do is print this thing really, really big, and then suddenly you find a little jagger or a slice that was left over from a piece of a layer mask that was inaccurate, that was a goof up, and now you've printed that. So I can't stress enough, go around that composition with a fine-tooth comb and find every possible area that might need a little bit of tweaking. So let's take one look final here at my finished Thunderbird Falls focus stack. And I've still got a little bit more work to do on it, but if I go into 100%, we can just look around and see that all the areas have been selected for fine focus. All the way over to this wall, we got the ferns and the mosses, we got the rocks under the water, we've got the roots and the tree. We can even see where somebody scratched their initials into the log down here. Man, we've just got so much detail, and that's what I love about doing a focus stack. And this one was a fun one. A little bit of a challenge, but this one was a fun one. So let's take one final look at Thunderbird Falls. If you just spend the time to do a focus stack, it can really give your audience that wow factor and make them feel like they can just walk straight into your shot, and they can pick what they want to focus on. They can choose to look at this rock or that fern or that little part of the waterfall and take in that experience as though they were just standing there. So I hope this video has helped you, and I hope it's encouraged you to try some things with focus stacking. If you found value in this video, do me a huge favor and hit subscribe on my channel if you haven't already. Share this video with your friends and give me a thumbs up and a like, because that will really help me grow my channel. And mainly, I hope this has inspired you to get out and explore God's creation with childlike wonder. Get out this spring and just see all these emerging flowers and the beauty. It's just amazing to get out and see what all God has going on this spring. And just being in Broken Bow last week, I just can't wait to get back out and do another one. So maybe I'll have my gear cooperate with me a little bit better on the next episode, and I'll try to take you back out with me behind the scenes on the next video. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. And if you missed my last video, here comes the link to it right now.